So Judy was born in Budapest, Hungary. She grew up in Montreal and currently lives, of course, here in Arizona. She has spent more than 25 years as an early childhood educator, and her experience ranges from a decade in the classroom to curriculum development, adult education, and school administration. She is an award-winning author, as I shared in the email. She's a community leader, a philanthropist, a wife, and a mom. And we're also, of course, very grateful to yours and your husband's support. Thank you. With the awards that we had talked about, she's received awards for her young children's titles and her 2 young adult historical stories. Judy spent many happy years as a kindergarten teacher, found this age group so inspiring and refreshing. Many of her stories have emerged from actual classroom situations and discussions. Her expanding young reader series, now totaling 6 of funny stories, are set in the magical land of Ghibleyville. We actually read some of these to our son, where different topics are addressed with both sensitivity and humor. Her books are often described as Walt Disney meets Dr. Seuss, and have managed to capture the imagination of children of all ages everywhere. So in addition to, of course, providing a great platform for discussion in classrooms, we're talking about a book that should create great discussion amongst adults as well. So without any further introduction, thank you, Judy.
Thank you for that great introduction. And now you've taken off the first 10 minutes of what I was going to say, but that's no problem. I'm proud to be here. A pleasure to join SOS. It's a great organization. And as Levertops have said, we do support it as well. I'm here today to talk to you about my writing. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about all the books, and then I'm going to zero in on the new book. So I started off as a kindergarten teacher, as was mentioned, and there were many topics in my kindergarten class that I really wanted to address. I couldn't find any books on them or appropriate books. So when I stopped teaching and I moved down to Arizona, I decided that was a great opportunity to start writing. It's always been a love of mine, and I was a writer in elementary school. I used to write poetry. I was a great fan of Dr. Seuss, great fan of Walt Disney, and that's why it's a collaboration of those two people. They were very inspiring to me as I was growing up, and I found children related to them very well. So I started off with my first book, which was 30-something years ago, and my dad had passed away, and my niece was 5 at the time, and I couldn't find a book to help her. So I thought, well, why don't I just write one? So I wrote the story. I submitted it to the World Society of Poetry, because it's written in poetry, and it won the Golden Poet Award, which was very exciting. And we went to New York and got that award. There were a lot of celebrities that were there who had also written books. So I was very proud. And so this book is helping young children deal with grief. And all of my books are social emotional issues for young children. So that was an area that for me was very important when I was teaching. Math, reading, other things are important as well, but if children don't feel good about who they are and don't have good social skills, those skills are difficult to develop. So once a child feels good about who they are, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic happens almost naturally. So this book, the idea was to take a difficult topic, which is grief. So it's about a little girl whose grandfather died, but rather than focusing on the death, we're focusing on the positive piece, which are the memories. So it's the stories about the little girl, the memories she has with her grandfather. And at the end of the book, it really tells the child that even though the person's gone, the memories live on. So they're always in your heart. So it's kind of a positive, even though it's a sad subject, many people have told me it's kind of a good feeling at the end. You feel sort of warm and fuzzy. And that was the idea for children as well as families. Many of my books, though they're children's books, apply to adults as well. So the new book, I'm calling the first children's book for adults, and I'll tell you why after. The next book is called Last Night I Had a Laughmare. And many children, 5-year-olds typically, have nightmares. So many of you might know this from grandchildren, and you know, it's the monster under the bed, the monster in the closet. So when I did some research, I found that one of the things that that educators have said or psychologists have said is that children often have nightmares because they saw or heard something scary before they went to bed. So I thought about that and I thought, well, if that's true, then the opposite should be true. So if we give them a funny, happy, silly book to read before they go to bed, then hopefully they'll have laughmares. So we got that word, which we obviously made up. And many children that I hear from actually all over the country have contacted me to tell me that they've had laughmares, which is really nice. It's nice to, you know, that when your child wakes up happy, the whole house is happy. So that happened actually to me, and I woke up one morning laughing, and my husband turned to me and he said, okay, so everybody else has nightmares and you have laughmares. You're either the most well-adjusted person or crazy. So we haven't figured it out yet. But yeah, so that was it. So that book, I also put it into a competition, which was a national competition for independent authors, and it won the Notable Children's Book Award. So that was very exciting because it's always nice to know that besides your friends and family who tell you it's good, that other people who are in the industry see its value. So that's actually been a very big seller, and a lot of people have told me how much it's really helped their family. I then moved on to another topic, which is very important to young children, their birthdays. I mean, it's important to everyone, but children love birthdays. But again, what was I going to do in terms of finding that piece, the social emotional piece? And social emotional development is something that's really important to start early because it's about giving them sensitivity to the others, understanding feelings. So those are things that were very important when I was teaching. So this book, it's a happy birthday book, but it also, the message in it is about using the power of your once a year birthday wish. So that very special wish that you only have once a year, and to help the world, rather than wishing for clothes or toys for yourself, to start thinking about others. And typically this age group is very egocentric. And we know there are other age groups that are very egocentric as well. So it's a great opportunity to think about others. So again, all of the books are meant to be discussions in your homes. So that was What's Your Birthday Wish, which also has been a fun one to do with children. Then, because I grew up celebrating Shabbat, like many of you did, I thought that'd be fun to do something that was very Jewish related. So I decided to do a Shabbat book. Again, what was the social emotional issue that I was trying to talk about in this book? It's about inclusiveness. So it's about, we've got lots of families that have non-Jewish members and they sometimes don't feel comfortable in Jewish situations, or we don't know how to make them feel comfortable. Shabbat is a great holiday to invite all those people, anyone, to your Shabbat table. And so that value is inclusiveness. So it's talking about let's make this inclusive. Let's talk about inclusiveness. Let's talk about how we exclude people. That's a great discussion to have with children. Then I moved on to, this would be my other book that I think is just as appropriate for adults as it is for children. And it's called The Very Unhappy Visitor. The Very Unhappy Visitor goes to the land of Gigglyville, which is where all the books come from, which is this happy, funny, silly, great place. I mean, everybody's happy there. It's just this marvelous place. So, but the unhappy visitor is this person who shows up and she's not happy. And she comes to the land of Gigglyville and she sees everything negative. So again, that opportunity to talk to children or as adults to talk about the idea that, you know, if you're going to look at things negatively, that's how you're going to see things. If you're going to look at things positively, that's going to make a difference. So the story goes into taking her through Gigglyville. She finally gets a pair of glasses, and it's the rose-colored glasses, so they're red glasses, and she starts to see what she's been missing. So she sees that, wow, she's missed all these colors, she's missed all these great opportunities. What a great place this is. And the end of the story, because I really want kids to be thinking, is not to tell them what they should do, but to leave them with the idea that it's up to you. It's really up to you. If you want to live your life in a negative way, you're going to see things negatively. If you want to live positively, then you're going to see it that way. But it offers you the opportunity for that discussion. So we call it in teaching, we would call it a teachable moment. And I think that all of these books provide a teachable moment for families. This is the last book, and I'm going to leave it because I'm going to talk about it after. And I have 2 young adult books that Levi mentioned. And my background, I was born in Hungary. My parents were Holocaust survivors, and my in-laws were also Holocaust survivors. So apparently it's quite unusual for 2 Holocaust survivor children to marry each other. That seems to be more unusual, but it did happen in our case. And for us, it was great because I could understand my husband's family, he could understand my family. I didn't have to explain what was going on. The first book, again, it was my first time trying a novel. So I'm a children's book author, and children's book writing is very different than novel writing. But this was a personal story, and my mom was turning 90. And so 2 years before she turned 90, she was visiting in Arizona. And I said to her, you know, I'd really like to write the story so we all have it. And I worked with her for the 2 years, and we put out this book, which is called Choices, and Choices won a Young Adult Book Award. So that was very exciting. Again, nice to know that other than my family and friends enjoyed it. The book has since actually been picked up by some people in Hollywood, and I've had some calls about doing a movie. So we now have a movie script for the book. It really is very much Ukraine, the story of what's happening in Ukraine right now. You know, the Russians came in, they took over, and everybody fled. So same thing, Hungary, they came back after the war, after they had lost people, lost all of their things. And then once again, 10 years later, which we know 10 years is not a long time, 10 years later, they then had to now leave everything behind, and now they're leaving with 2 young children. So my parents had married by then, and I'm the 2-year-old in the book. So it's actually a pretty remarkable story. There's a Christian girl that helped my parents who we reconnected with, and she was 16 at the time. She invited us to live at her house with her, the whole family. Pretty remarkable. 16, who says she just wants to help, and she'll give up her room, just come and live with us. We want to help you. So yeah, interesting story for sure. The next one, once that won an award, of course, my mother-in-law is 2 years younger than my mother. She was turning 90. And so of course I could not write her story since I had done my mother's story. And her story is called The Hidden Pearl, and her name is Pearl. And she was hidden, she was a hidden child, but unique, different way, because she was hidden with Polish Christians who didn't know she was Jewish. So she pretended she was an orphan. Her family lived in the woods nearby. And she basically, at 10 years old, spent several years pretending to be somebody else. I mean, think about the burden for a 10-year-old to have to do that. But had she told them she was Jewish, they would have turned her in. She would have gone to the camps. So, and that book won the Gold Medal Award for young adult readers. So, and it's the only 2 young adult ones I read. I thought, once I've got 2 awards, I might as well stop. You know, I'm a big fan of show and tell, being a kindergarten teacher, past kindergarten teacher. So I have all of these things that I usually bring out at presentations so you get a better look at things. These are the awards that the 2 young adult books won, which are the Moonbeam Children's Book Awards. And our company is called Little Egg Publishing. Little Egg comes from my maiden name. My maiden name is Agathe. And so when I was in school, the kids in school would say, oh, there comes Little Egg, Agathe. And so when I was thinking about a children's book publishing company, I thought, well, that's a great idea, Little Egg Publishing. So Little Egg was born. Our tagline is growing the love of reading. So that's what I'm hoping to do with the books, is growing the love of reading. And really, I should say, growing the love of talking with your family. And there's a collection of some of the books. We've started with a little bit of merchandising. So we have the bear, which is part of one of the stories, and he's the kindness bear. So a reading buddy. It's always nice to have a reading buddy. Okay, I'm going to go to the book that I really want to talk to you about. And that is this one. I respectfully disagree. So this was written in the last couple of years when, as you have all observed too, there's been some crazy stuff going on in society where if you don't have the same opinion as someone else, they don't want to talk to you. It's kind of the kids, it's like the kids in the playground, sort of, you don't like jumping jack, or you don't like hopscotch. If you don't like hopscotch, you can't be my friend. And you're seeing it now with adults. And I thought that was going to be a really difficult things for children to watch adults not get along because of something they didn't really understand. I mean, basically it was, for some families, you couldn't be with your family. If you were blue and they were red, you couldn't be together. You weren't allowed to be together. So I thought, how confusing is that? And you know, it's certainly a skill. We want to give a better skill to our next population. Hopefully they will be able to say, I respectfully disagree. Instead of saying, I hate you, you're terrible, you're awful, I don't want to be your friend, you can just say, I respectfully disagree. When I was growing up, we used to say, you know, if somebody didn't agree with you, we'd say, let's agree to disagree. Let's go for lunch, you know. It's, you don't have to have the same opinion as I do. And in the back of the book, I have this written in the back. So arguing over opinions can lead to so many friendships being lost. Does it matter who is right or wrong when looking at the cost? May we simply agree to disagree when we do not see things the same? Might we allow for other opinions instead of placing fault or shame? I respectfully disagree is a very easy phrase for almost anyone to use or say. If someone does not agree with you, use these words. They'll even work today. In Gigglyville, respecting others is something we try to keep in mind. It creates a much nicer community when we all work at being kind. So that's really the message. The message is, you know, opinions are not facts. Opinions are likes and dislikes. And why can't we all have likes and dislikes, even if they're not the same as yours? The book is done, this particular story is done in 3 little vignettes. The first one is a square character and a circle character. You're going to see lots of teaching things in it because of my background. So a lot of what we do curriculum-wise in early childhood would be shapes, colors, and numbers. And that's what takes place in this story. So 2 characters, a square shape and a round shape. And the circle shape can't understand why anyone would like anything else besides a circle. And the square shape says, but I want to be a square. I like squares. So they have that discussion, and then you move to another 2 characters, and those 2 characters are red and blue. So the red and blue characters decide, you know, red doesn't understand why they don't like anything but red. The blue doesn't understand why they don't like anything but blue. And so those 2 characters mix their colors together and get purple. They both decide that they like purple. So we bring in the concept of compromise. You can have compromise. Sometimes it works out. You don't have to compromise, but sometimes it can work out. And the last little vignette or story is about numbers. So it's number 1 and number 7, because of course everybody wants to be number 1. But the number 7 decides he wants to be lucky number 7. He happens to like that number. And again, the end of the story is left to you. It's not, I don't do any preaching. It's all about, you need to read the story, you need to talk about it, and you need to come to a conclusion. And the conclusion for these characters was that our friendship is more important than arguing. So that's kind of a great discussion to have in your home. So that's, I have 6 children's books and 2 young adult books. I'm not working on anything presently. I've actually taken a little bit of a break because I had basically 1 book a year. And with the young adult books, it was 2 books a year. So I thought it was time to take a little break and figure out what other topics I would be interested in. So as an early childhood educator, I don't really like to talk to an audience. I like to talk with an audience. So if you have any questions, I would love to answer questions. It could be about publishing, it could be about education, it could be about the books. Okay, yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. Who does your illustrating?
Good question. I hire an illustrator.
Do you mind repeating questions on Zoom?
Oh, sure. That's a great idea. Okay. The question was, who is my illustrator? So I have a few different illustrators and I hire them online. I actually have never met them. I've never met any of them. Oh, I shouldn't say that. I did meet this one because at this point it was before it was 30 years ago. So it was before we had a lot of internet going on, and he was a local artist. He was a grandfather, and he had just retired and was happy to work on a book. So good question. Thank you. Yes.
What age would you say young adult? 10 years old, 13?
The question is, when I'm talking about young adults, what age am I talking about? So the two young adult books are pretty much 12 and up. So I would say 12 and up. They're very readable at a young age, but the concepts in there are a little grown up. So again, it's a great book for grandparent and grandchild to read together, or parent and child to read together and then talk about it. So the readability, definitely 12-year-old could read it for sure. So 12 and up. Anyone else? Yes.
Are all the books still in print? And how would I order?
Okay, so the question is, are all the books still in print and where would you order it? So the books are all in print. This book has been reprinted now 3 times. So it's probably been one of the most popular books. It also was available at the Holocaust Museum in Washington for quite a while in the bookstore. They are available on our website, and I have cards outside so everybody can take a card. They're on Amazon, so you can look me up on Amazon, either on the title or J.E. Laufer, which is what I write under.
So, question from Zoom.
Beg your pardon?
Publish anyone else's books yet?
The question is, have I published other people's books yet? No, I have not. It is something that I am looking at, though, in the future. I wanted to make sure that I had all of the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that I had what I needed in terms of publishing, since that was a learning curve for me. I wasn't a publisher. I learned to be a publisher. So before I would take on anybody else and spend their money, I wanted to make sure that I had the right pieces together. So I feel pretty confident now with 8 books that I probably could. Yes. Sorry? Oh, okay. What are the costs of the children's books? So they're $16.95 a book, and the young adult ones are $18.95.